helping you find your new way forward to the best years of your life. This is a New Way Forward podcast with your host, Paul Long.
There is a new reality of life, especially, but not limited to, those of us who are older, and almost nobody knows about it. Almost nobody realizes it, and they're looking at life the old way and not the new way and taking advantage of it. And those people who are taking advantage of it are living some of the best, most vibrant, purposeful, fulfilling years of their lives. Things have changed. In fact, change is happening faster than it's ever happened before, and it'll never be this slow again. But the problem is that sometimes we have trouble keeping up with it. I'm not talking about the new iPhone or something like that. I'm talking about life on this earth has changed radically. Things have changed to enable us to have a new phase of life, which I call Olderhood. Stanford University's Longevity Center has come up with a new life map that includes this thing where, in the first place, we can not only live longer, but we can live longer healthy and active and independent and relevant. We can have this phase of life that isn't just retirement and then decline physically and cognitively and then die, but rather millions of people around the world, and soon it will be billions of people around the world, are looking at this as a new opportunity. I looked at it as, this is my turn. You know, in my youth, I learned, and as an adult, it was almost like an apprenticeship, applying what I learned and figuring out myself in life. And I started a family. I've had 2 careers. And then I'm like, boys are in college. They're going to live on their life. I'm kind of done with what I'm doing. Now what am I going to do? And that's when I started researching. I really put in the time and effort to figure out, okay, what am I going to do in the years that I have left? And I was thinking like everybody else did, well, I want to retire. I don't really think retire's right for me. And then I realized that from doing my studying and talking to people, both experts and people in the same situation, that retirement, which by the way, is a modern day iteration. People used to be active and relevant and purposeful until the day they died. But beginning in the 20th century, especially in the 50s, this retirement thing came up with Social Security and pensions and things of that sort. And they're like, oh, I can live a life of luxury. And I can do whatever I want to do. And I can sleep in, and I can go play golf, and I can do this, that, and the other. But then along came the 60s. And if you think of the 60s and the cultural change, the life change that happened, the first thought is sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and a lot of social movements. Well, those were manifestations of something deeper, because just like now, the socioeconomic and technology and healthcare situation had reached a point that enabled the youth in the world, not just in the United States, but all across the world, to say, wait a minute, I'm not going to accept what's on offer. I'm not going to accept what my parents think I should do, or society or the government or bosses think I should do. I'm going to define my own life and my own lifestyle. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Or, I'm going to put some of my time and effort in making the world a better place. So civil rights, women's rights, gay and lesbian rights, farm workers' rights, the ecology movement, all emanated from that. Or I'm going to be self-determinate. I'm going to become an entrepreneur. Well, back in the 60s, what's the closest thing to an entrepreneur? A drug dealer. But who came out of that generation in that situation? Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Sir Richard Branson, on and on and on. The world changed dramatically. Now we venerate people who are in their 20s. Well, those people that are in their 60s are now doing what they did in the 60s. They're redefining what it means to be of a certain age, because the way the economy is, and business and technology and healthcare and just the world, plus the fact that we and everybody alive today has experienced that self-determination, that anything is possible, that I'm going to decide what I want in life, or I want to make a difference and I want to contribute, is enabled now. And so this phase of life is being redefined as well into this thing called olderhood. So a number of years ago, when I was looking to change my life, that's when I discovered all of this. And it opened up my eyes, because in the first place, I started looking into the retirement people, and I was finding that alcoholism, drug abuse, divorce, depression, even suicide were on the rise. And I was talking to the experts and other people who had retired, and sure enough, and maybe you've even come across this too, they were going, yeah, Paul, it's like for the first year or two, it was great. I could do anything I wanted to. But now it's miserable, because I don't have a real purpose. I'm not like doing anything, I'm not contributing to anything. Yeah, I'm, volunteering and stuff, but I don't have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. Or I don't find life satisfying, because I learned that satisfaction is really coming from doing something that's difficult and meaningful. So I don't feel relevant anymore. I don't feel fulfilled. And I've really kind of lost my self-identity. And at first I just thought it was because I wasn't working anymore, but I realized it was much deeper than that. And I'm 65 and I could live another 30 years. What the hell am I going to do with all of those years? Okay, that's not for me. But conversely, at the same time, I started finding out about all these people who, most of the time out of necessity, sometimes out of desire and self-awareness, like lost their jobs because they were too old, ageism, or, they had the money, but they saw the writing on the wall that they needed something more. And so they were, in many cases, forced into reimagining themselves, reconsidering what they could do. And they've, in a way, not really reinvented themselves, but they've reimagined their lives, and they've pursued a new path that may be a modification of what they were doing before, or something entirely new. And so many of those people are saying being put in that crisis or having that piece of self-awareness was the greatest realization I ever had in my life, because now I'm living the life that I really want. I'm fulfilled by it. I'm passionate. I built a life that fulfills all the different needs of my life, not just career and income and things of that sort, but the fulfillment part of it. And it allows me to have the energy and attention and enjoyment of family and community and all of those things. And that's what's possible now. That's the new reality that people are missing out on. That's why I did New Way Forward, because in looking for, what do I want to do that in life that's, what I had been doing was something I could do, but it wasn't what I should have done, because I did succeed at it and I'm grateful for it, but it wasn't fulfilling to me. Fortunately, I put in the time and the effort and an open mind to reconsider, reimagine what was possible for me, to really kind of look at, okay, now it's my turn. I've done all of this. Now it's my turn to define the life that I wanted and needed. And I have it. And this is happening all over the world. This is a mega trend that you're not seeing on the news because it's not sensational enough. And we are an underserved demographic. And I would say potentially within 5 years, certainly 10 years from now, this is going to be the norm. For our kids, they're going to be looking at this time of life as an opportunity to do exactly what they need and want to do for themselves, from both practical terms as well as to have a fulfilling, enjoyable life, which is what you want. In fact, I've shared this vision of the new reality and what people are doing and the possibilities that are open to them with people in their 30s. Like some of them, on the client side of my content creation business. Hey, Paul, what's this New Way Forward thing that you're doing? And I explained to them this. I say it's an entirely new way to look at olderhood and the fact that you could live healthy, active, relevant, busy into your 90s. And in fact, being healthy, active, and relevant, and purpose-driven, and passionate about what you're doing is a contributor to living into your 90s in that state. And so I explain all that to them, and I say it's all there for you. And by the way, it's there for you right now. Because with New Way Forward, I've got people in their 30s and 40s that are enthusiastic followers because, they just reached the point earlier, like, what am I doing with my life? And I'm just living the default life. And there's got to be something more than this. How do I transition and change? But I'm speaking specifically of people thinking about, I'm approaching retirement age, so I guess I'm going to retire. I hope I can afford it and all that other kind of stuff. And they don't even stop to really think, wait, what are the other options that are out there for me? What's going on in the rest of the world? Well, that's what I've done, and that's what I'm sharing with you. So with those 30-somethings, I got one or two reactions. One reaction, overwhelmingly, has been, wow, that's so cool. That changes my perspective on life right now. You're right. I can see it. That's the big thing. Almost everybody I talk to gets it right away because you're seeing the bits and pieces. I'm connecting the dots. The other response I get is, it's interesting, Paul. I have to think about it. And then I see them like a couple of months later, and they're like, I can't stop thinking about this. This changes the way that I'm looking at life now. This is happening all over the world. And as I mentioned, on the one hand, technology and the economy and businesses and laws even are set up to enable this, but not to the degree that it will be someday. Because businesses already are realizing that they need to keep and retain some of their older, more experienced employees, or find older employees. For one thing, just for staffing and people who have the experience and the credentials and the skills and the talents that they need. And by the way, in a lot of cases, when are your skills and talents and experience better than when you get older and you've been doing it for longer, as long as you've maintained lifelong learning and you've stayed up on things. That's why the future is the intergenerational, not multi-generational. That's just a bunch of multi-generations, but intergenerational workplace is becoming such a huge thing. It's enabling and teaching people of all ages on how to regard each other as being different in the way that they think and the different way that they approach things, but respecting those differences and leveraging those differences between people who are older and younger, as just as much as the case they grew up in a different country or a different society or different situation or whatever. Vive la différence. That is also starting to happen now, so that people can work longer, or maybe they modify and they're working part-time or they're consulting or whatever. That's just one example of a million. It's a few years old now, but to show you how radically different this is that the Kaufman Index does entrepreneurial surveys and studies. And again, this was a number of years ago. Forgive me for remembering the exact date, but you know that this number has only gotten more impressive. Is that they found in the United States that baby boomers were outpacing millennials in the number of startups every year by a 2-to-1 margin. Double the number. The older entrepreneur is the hot new thing. And by the way, it kind of stands to reason, because a lot of people are doing it out of necessary, or in an interview that I did with Paul Tasner, who also did a highly watched TED Talk. He said, I was like kind of a nothing mid-level professional so-so career. I got let go when I was 65. I did some consulting, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not going out like this. I'm going to pursue something important and relevant to me. And he started his own business. He's a social entrepreneur. where it's a full-blown business, but it's something that's contributing to society. And he's like, I've never been more fulfilled in my life. I've never been more happy and satisfied with my life. And my granddaughter thinks I'm really cool. So the other statistic, and there have been various ones, that ranges from the success rate of older entrepreneurs versus younger entrepreneurs is like by a factor of 6 or 7. 6 or 7 times more likely to succeed. And why not? You've got all that experience. You've got advanced talents. You've got a lot of knowledge. You've got a great network. And in some cases, you've got a little bit more access to money than a 20-something necessarily would. So that's just one example of the transformative thing that is going on across the world here. Governments are starting to catch up with it. Heck, Singapore is taking people who were doing manual labor, like let's say construction or like a hotel maid. And as they're getting older, they are offering new training on new skills and new ways to work and earn an income in a way that is not as physically demanding. You know that that's going to start showing up more and more and more. Universities are starting to offer special kind of courses in schools and such for people who are older to, in the first place, share some of what they've learned with younger students, but also learn themselves. It is a complete transformation. So here's the ultimate question. What are you going to do with it? Here is this opportunity to reimagine, reconsider, reapply yourself, and do so in a way that you've earned the ability to make it my turn, to really design, be the designer of your own life, to have the life exactly what you want. And by the way, when I'm talking about business and fulfilling needs and such, as you may have been picking up, the population demographic pyramid, which is typically like this, down here at my thumbs, young people, kids, newborns, and at the top, older people. Well, it's kind of inverting, because now there are more people, I believe it's over the age of, more people over 60 than there are under 17. And if it's not there yet, it's trending toward that. It's become a crisis in countries like China and South Korea and Japan, and it's even an issue here. The birth rates are down. And that even goes into young workers. So businesses or services that are needed, whether they're through a company that somebody works for or that they offer themselves, is becoming even more dire. The world is changing. We need to keep up on it. And no matter what your age, you need to look at life not in the stereotype, not in the assumption or presumption that existed 10, 20, 30, 50 years ago of you learn, you're an adult, you retire, and you die, with decline in there. No, it's in your youth you learn. In your adulthood, consider it an apprenticeship, a very active apprenticeship in life. And that when you get older, whatever that means, in Silicon Valley, that's 39 years old. But when you get older, or when you get self-aware enough, or when circumstances in your life call it, you're ready to make life your turn and know that you've got decades ahead. You could be 50 years old and your life is only halfway over. This is the new thinking behind New Way Forward. This is what I realized that helped me design my life. And so many people that I know that are succeeding and living the most fulfilling lives that they never would have imagined possible, only because it's right for them. It's not that they're making $1 billion or they're famous or anything. They're just living a life that they're loving and is fulfilling and brings joy. It's because they realize this opportunity exists. So rethink, catch up with the times, reimagine the possibilities. And yeah, keep following me to find the ways, the methods, and those possibilities that are available to you to find a new way forward that is ideal for you.
You've been listening to A New Way Forward podcast with your host, Paul Long.